the pan in terms of robotics, in terms of the Internet of Things, but I think we're going to stray into something also, and what are the benchmarks, is it, and so forth. So I'll welcome the panelists on. We'll do some quick introductions. I'll kick off, we'll do some intros, and then we'll get into the subject matter. Thank you. So just the way I see it, I mean, obviously, not just as an enabler and not just as a disruptive force to traditional business, but as something that's going to completely and dramatically reshape the nature of employment, the social fabric, and human life, and North Africa as well. So to me, there are three dimensions to the whole question, which is how industry. So for example, if you take food and beverage, the single biggest disruptor to food and beverage, traditional out-of-home dining, is people staying at home. And obviously, food delivery give consumers and the reality is the traditional restaurant business is suffering accordingly. Most of the regions I've invested in have between 25 and 30% of business in restaurant. How technology acts as an enabler to existing businesses. Example, analytics and data capture, CRM technologies, and so forth. How do you get technology playing a role to understand your customers and to play a role to deepen and widen your channels? Example, education, example, healthcare, diagnostics, and so forth. And the third area, which is one of the ones we're going to concentrate on today, is around the really interesting stuff around artificial intelligence, robotics, the Internet of Things, and how the nature of employment, the nature of skill, and the nature of the social fabric of our societies gets affected. Because to me, that's quite a big preoccupation. But the important thing to recognize is where are the benchmarks and how do we prepare ourselves? Is it Istanbul? To me, that's really the story, which is let's find examples which are relevant to where we are in terms of our life stage in technology. So my name is Aves. I'm an investor, a partner with a fund called Rise Capital. We invest in emerging markets, ex-China. We have a number of companies in the portfolio across Africa, Latin America. So I'm very fortunate to have a fantastic panel of highly talented people. We went through an exercise and just shared our bios with each other, and it's really a fantastic group of people. So what I'll do is talk less about myself and pass on to each person along this way. Off you go, Frank.
My name is Frank Salzgeber. I'm still head of technology transfer and business incubation and future about 160 startups a year in our 45 incubation centers across Europe. We think agriculture industry, but also with a flying taxi. So everything where you have space, and space when you're looking from the hotel here on the roofs, you see a lot of satellite dishes. That's space technology. Navigation in your mobile phone, that is space technology. When you make a fall. Saudi Arabia has a long history also with satellite and Earth observation data. We look sometimes a little bit long term for crazy project, what we do on near Earth or than 2 or 3 quarters. I worked for Apple, I had my own startup.
Great. How do you compete with that? That's awesome. Suleiman Alireza on opportunities between Asia and the Middle East, cross within the spheres of technology. Today, I would argue, and I think some of the panelists here would agree with me, today, Asia, led by China, is front and center of a lot of the technologies and innovations that are coming out that are applicable globally, but specifically also to emerging markets.
Okay. Well, Sebastian, pleasure having being here and having you all in the crowd now. I'm the founder of Tempest Capital. We are a Latin American investor focusing on the missing middle in Latam. Basically, we've seen a huge, the traditional companies who are all tend to concentrate more on companies that are growing and developing with new technology. Before that, I ran the largest fondos, also Saudi Arabia.
With a fund called Click Ventures, based in Hong Kong, with a global mandate. We essentially invest to Series A, and then sometimes follow to B, C, and a little bit later. So then any specific network effect, return to scale, and helps us to generate a moat or a barrier to entry around the company. And this tends to result in winner-take-all type markets. So we like platforms, marketplaces, the kind of buyer, seller, where there's interesting data accumulated within the model, so that we've invested all around the world. Our previous focus, we tended to do more in North America, including Canada and the United States. We focus a little bit outside of Silicon Valley, although we've done several Silicon Valley investments. And we also invest in Europe, mostly Northern Europe, and all over Asia. We're trying to build more and more deal flow in Asia, and also build some in the Middle East and North Africa.
Thank you. Thanks. It's great being here. So thank you to everyone. I work with, my name is Ro Charles. I work on the investment team with Vickers Venture Partners. Vickers, we are probably one of the larger non-government linked venture funds in Southeast Asia. We have about $3 billion USD under the umbrella. We invest globally. So although we're headquartered in Singapore, we have 7 offices worldwide. So we're in Silicon Valley, we're in New York. We're very active in China, so Shanghai, Shenzhen, Hong Kong. We used to cover the Chinese market. And in Southeast Asia, we're active right across the region. As mentioned, we also look at the US. The reason we're in the US is we look at a lot of deep tech. We're quite active in biotech. We primarily get involved around Series A onwards. So our first ticket size might be anything from 5 to 10 onwards. We do a lot of follow-on investments, robotics, AI. The only area I don't touch is life sciences. So we have a dedicated bio team to handle those sorts of deals.
Fantastic. So, I mean, as you can see, a very varied group of people with amazing experiences. But I wanted to kick off actually with Charles and with Suleiman, which was, you know, as you sit in Asia, where do you see, because Asia is, you know, it's not Silicon Valley, but the reality is, for me, it's more exciting and more interesting and more relevant. So what do you see happening in China, in Hong Kong, and in the rest of Asia that you think are the 3 or 4 defining factors of where disruptive technologies are likely to play a key role in you see in China?
I think it's interesting because you mentioned 3 pillars for how technology impacts societies. I think there's a 4th one, which is I think those are places like China, like Indonesia, Southeast Asia more generally, and we'll see that across emerging markets. Now, just to give an example, in China, these are businesses that are being built from the ground up on the modern rails of technology. Take a company that everybody knows, Alibaba. Over the last 15 years have been hollowed out due to urbanization. But since Alibaba built out its logistics and payments, they've made their way up because there are certain specializations in these villages where they can now sell anywhere in China. And because they don't have the consumer class that now has moved to urban centers, because of Taobao and because of Alibaba's extensive logistics network, they can sell anywhere in China. So that's created an opportunity for villages that were potentially going to be extremely poor in China.
Good point. And Charles, do you want to have a crack also? I mean, in terms of, your investing theses.
Sure. Yeah, so with regards to China, I'll touch on China first. We used to form that thesis early on. So he from a macro level, we were looking at China, and he knew it was very clear the internet was going to fuel a growing machine in itself as well. So, you know, we scoured the Chinese market at the time, and he decided that he wanted to be in search in China. So he you know, looked all across China, and he identified Baidu as the company that was far better than everything else. So when people speak to him and they said, you know, you found Baidu, that was intelligent. He just says, no, it'll translate today. So back in the day, we knew China was going to grow, we knew the internet was going to grow, hence we made that decision. So it was a macro decision, a macro thesis behind our investment decision. These days going on to, but if you look at what the government is doing in terms of some of the mandates and directives of the government, they're quick at embracing technology, and when they pursue it very hard. So China's been built on the back of a manufacturing economy. That's what it's been till date. It was the world's factory, wealth creation in China. So as it happens, the dynamics are also changing in China. So investing, you know, what were those key first couple of layers that, you know, the base, the health tech due for massive disruption, and you see it playing out with companies like Alphabet. What do you need for good AI? You actually amount of data, and they have that. They got, you know, 1 billion+ people. So we clearly are pursuing AI companies in China. However, so are thousands of others. It's a very busy market, right? So the way we go about it is of course, you know, there's a specific method into what we're looking for in AI companies in China. Moving across to Southeast Asia, very different. Southeast Asia is almost where China was sort of 20 years ago. There's a lot of inefficiencies just in day-to-day life, and there's a huge, you know, the majority of consumers in China are Class C and E consumers, so people with $2,000 to $3,000 per capita income annually. That's going to change rapidly over the next 10, 20 years, but what are the first key pieces of internet that they're going to touch? So that's why people, you look at the actual full penetration of financial products serving everyone, it's incredibly low. So there's a lot of areas where technology will address and leapfrog a lot of Southeast Asian nations. So that's sort of what we look at in Southeast Asia. So in
pick up actually with Sebastian, because obviously you've highlighted certain areas of your background. You've obviously played an instrumental role with Fundo de Fundos in Latin America, and obviously now you're here on the board of PIF. Tell us a little bit about your...
the fund of funds, not a PIF.
differences and the similarities in terms of entrepreneurship, opportunity, and ecosystem.
Well, it's actually more similar than with people learning. There's a learning curve for the entire, all the participants that they're ready, that they understand the risks, and that they have, you know, ideas are running out in Silicon Valley. That's why you were seeing that the Andreessens of the world scouring the emerging markets to invest in, which, by the way, 3 years ago they vowed that they would not invest outside of the Silicon Valley. Their attitude was, if you were any good, you would go to Silicon Valley. They would actually tell us that why would they ever do that? And now they're investing in Mexico. They're investing in something very, you know, we're 8 months away from probably a worldwide recession at most. And we're going to start seeing that a lot of these ideas that depend on that are, you know, they're not unit economics profitable, and they depend on unlimited access to funding. Well, they're going to run into trouble. And that actually defines quite a few of the players in the U.S. ecosystem. So what do we see what are we seeing in emerging markets? The delta is larger. So in the U.S., smaller problems. That's not necessarily bad, but it means that there's less profit in it. Obviously, it has to be small that term. Because amongst other things, you don't want to be a unicorn. You want to be the right size and you solving the right problem for your ecosystem. And there's beauty in, and we've seen that also in Latin America, where some very small and they went bankrupt. Emerging markets venture capital is different from Silicon Valley. And I'm saying Silicon Valley because even in the U.S., if you've ever seen venture capital in the Midwest, in the U.S. Midwest, it's actually remarkably similar to emerging markets because they don't have unlimited access to capital, right? And I think I think that's something that we saw in. They can survive on a shoestring budget, and that makes them resilient. And it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out in the next year.
Absolutely. And Chris, in terms of your experience also in Asia, I mean, obviously, you know, how do you see, what's your take on the Asian success story, the contrast between the rest of Asia and China, and where you see opportunity?
Well, first of all, where Sebastian was talking about where we are in this cycle is an interesting observation. We are kind of at a later stage in a cycle. Right now, I just read that right now it costs about 10% services, the Ali Cloud, Google keyword searches, pretty much every aspect of starting up a company is reduced. So the risk is somewhat mitigated by and a lot of duplicate ideas where they're competing around very similar concepts. When I look at Asia, I see this has been an advantage because now you can afford to take some bets on doing a home delivery service for start. I mean, Webvan back in the 90s in the U.S. was a spectacular explosion. $2 billion of funding or something like that, the equivalent of it, and to build 5 distribution centers that all failed. Now you've got Grab and you've got all these things in Southeast Asia. Their startup costs are significantly lower. And therefore they can actually really suit their market. They can provide a service that people value. So I'm bullish on some of this business model innovation. Your return profile is going to be reduced. Your risk profile will stay about the same because you can make more bets. So now that's kind of Asia ex China. China is also concur that China is its own thing, and India to a lesser extent. These markets have enough complexity and breadth and depth, you know, the landlines and going straight to the cellular. They're going straight to mobile. Innovation is fundamental to these markets, I think, and provide.
I just wanted to jump in. I think maybe just bring a slightly unique angle to the China perspective as somebody who invests both in China and in the region and advises on cross-borders in Southeast Asia. You're having a wave into India, but ZTE, Alibaba, big Chinese MNCs in the region, some of them are fluent in Arabic, and are coming to pick up pockets of digital consumption that are not being competed for by the local market. You know, Kerim is a unicorn, but the other one is a Chinese company called Jollychick, where they just raised $300 million. Sequoia China led that round. Legend Capital has been an investor early on. Their growth in the region has been tremendous. And they're not stopping at e-commerce. They want to tackle the logistics problems, they want to tackle the payment problems, and they're hiring they're adding a lot of local content. Jollychick alone here has 2,000 Saudi employees just in Saudi, and only 10 Chinese. So a lot of people criticize the Chinese when they go abroad and they only hire Chinese. Actually, particularly in the tech space, it's a completely opposite situation. And we're seeing it over and over with multiple entrepreneurs that we're speaking to who are either fluent Arab speakers, Chinese Muslims, who are saying, we want to capture digital consumption in MENA. And for them, it's the prize. They've looked at Southeast Asia, they've looked at India, and they've said, MENA is the prize. Highest ARPU, highest level of engagements, and one of the lowest CACs anywhere in the world.
Absolutely. I mean, I'd mirror that as well. I mean, if you look at the acquisition of Trendyol in Turkey by Alibaba, if you look at the acquisition of Daraz in Pakistan by Alibaba as well, and if you look at the Jollychick parallel that Suleiman gave, I mean, the reality is, you know, from Turkey to Pakistan, this could end up being a Chinese-dominated e-commerce market. Absolutely. And if you look at the partnerships Fetcher has, they're primarily Chinese as well. So I'd absolutely mirror that. I wanted to pick up actually on one point with Frank, which was around, there was an interesting observation actually this morning from somebody on a panel who talked about the quality of entrepreneurs now compared to 10 years ago. 10 years ago, he said, perhaps unfairly, it was all guys who were high school dropouts and college dropouts. Now it's kind of PhD students, people who've actually done the academics, opposed to just cutting and pasting. So I just wanted to pick that up with Frank actually, which is, how do you see a difference in the quality of entrepreneurs in Europe and the rest of the...
And trust me, a lot of people thought startups in space, cases, we have the big cases, nobody's laughing anymore. And this has to do also, of course, with the population. And I think when we go 15 years ago in Saudi, I think if you want to create a startup company, there was some wind maybe coming against your face, and I think in Europe it's the same. Where in the US had that, and I think that has turned. The money has turned, the perspective, because I think, therefore this is what we discussed before the panel, therefore we need really good stories. Young entrepreneurs, old entrepreneurs, does not matter, telling the good stories. That things go wrong. My startup also, I didn't have my own IPO because the merger was first, so was it a success or not? I think it was still a success. So I think this has turned. People were saying, I don't want to go to national bank, and where working for the space agency normally is a super safe job, yeah, if you get one. But if you say, no, first I want to really shake the market doing competition. I like hardware, you know, and also that has changed. So we have more and more hardware companies. Hardware is good. I believe it because it's hard. It creates value in the region. And also maybe this we have seen as a change. The substance of the entrepreneur is more that the American business model is we move the startup company to the Silicon Valley or to Boston. That's it, really completely. The rest of the world is more accepting that you build on cooperation. Yeah? And I think this is the opportunity for the region. It's for Asia, but one day, before you're entering the MENA region, they say, okay, why not finding a local partner, a kind of cousin, who helps me to solve all the problems which I will never solve otherwise. And I think this is a thing where Badir has done an amazing job the last 2 years. I think what Navas has done is deep, deep respect. And I think I would play that more because this is built on trust. Maybe not a return in 2 years, but on the long term help to growth. So between the American model, which is first growth and then revenue, because the rest of the world is first growth, first revenue and then growth, I think there's a line in between, which I call the Frank model, which is built on cooperation. So, and I think this is one of the challenges we have here. And the new entrepreneurs take that because they say, we want to grow quick, but that doesn't mean that I have to set up our own office with own operation, with own people from abroad in a region which 90% fails.
I mean, you know, I think one of the themes for me which is most interesting is the social implications of what we all do for a living. I mean, if anything makes me stop and think in terms of investment decisions, it's what does that mean for wider community stakeholders? What does it mean for Nigeria? What does it mean for Pakistan? What does it mean for Kenya when you invest in a business? And the reality is that things are not keeping up because it takes an enormous amount of governmental public sector commitment to completely transform the nature of a workforce. I wanted to put an open question out there to the panel, which is, how do we reconcile the passion and fixation we have for technology, entrepreneurs, that comes from unemployment, lack of economic opportunity across the board, and an aging population that in many countries will not have much to do. You see it in Europe, you see it in the US. How do we find a solution? And it's obviously a very big question, but how do we reconcile that as investors and entrepreneurs? And how do we think of an investment decision in a way which is a bit more inclusive? Open to anyone who wants to pick the question up.
Well, first of all, I don't see the contradiction. I think technology is the solution, not the problem. You know, I'm definitely not a Luddite. Basically, from technology for an aging population, technology is the only way we're going to be able to manage, you know, an inverted population, a severely inverted population period. And that's the only way. Right now, we're going, you know, in the developed world, we're a worker to one retiree. So essentially, you have one person who has to maintain not only his family but also an additional external headcount. That's not sustainable unless you're able to extend the working life and the productivity of this older generation. And you're also going to be able to provide services at a much lower cost. That includes lower cost healthcare, that includes lower cost services, lower cost food, and obviously all of that is technology. So technology will provide the solution. In Mexico, Latin America, like Mexico concretely, Mexico has the lowest productivity of the entire OECD. So Mexicans work the longest outside of South Koreans, and we get the lowest productivity. Lowest growth in salaries in the past decade also. So we're just running, you know, we're running in circles, going nowhere. Why? Because we're not applying sufficient technology. We have to add value to our product, to our work product. Otherwise, yes, you can be looking at it as a lower employment opportunities, but it's also such employment opportunities that are not tech-enabled provide a very low quality of life to the people who are getting those low value-add jobs. We have to find a way of providing sufficient higher value-add jobs that will not only provide minimal employment, but will provide meaningful employment for the people that are benefiting from that growth in society. We have to make sure that also that the tech-enabled growth takes care of the individuals who are left behind, because there are going to be people who are left behind. But the beautiful thing about productivity and growth is that it generates a surplus, and it's easier to spread out that surplus than to try to spread out misery.
I think on that point, I completely agree with Sebastian. We see technology as a solution. So let's look at some use cases. Sebastian sort of mentioned like financial products. Let's use an example like the Philippines, right? The Philippines, you have 100 million people. 70 million people are C&D consumers. So 70 million people are not a meaningful, attractive ARPU customer to a traditional bank, et cetera, et cetera. For a bank to open a branch and service these 70 million people, or, you know, it's not worth the effort of the infrastructure cost to do so. A lot of digital-first businesses can address so many of these issues. So imagine once you start servicing these 7 million people, and what do they need to be serviced with? They need education. You educate your population is the fastest way to drive it forward. You service them in those areas. You make health products, et cetera, available to them. And this is how you transform a country. The difficulty that you're pointing to is society has been built offline. So we're humans, we've been built offline, and now we're shifting to a digital era. And we've already shifted, but it's always a friction point. If you have a large organization, and you go into that large organization, and that's a pen and paper organization, and you say, everyone, stop what you're doing, we're going to start doing it on computers, you're going to get pushed back, and everyone's going to say, no, it's tough, it's a hassle, I do it my way. Because there's a friction point in the changeover. And that's where we are as humans, as a society at the moment. So we're talking about taking this fragmented sort of world that's sort of online in advanced places, a little bit offline, but we know the impact it can have on the rest of the world. How we do it is not easy. There will be, of course, attrition along the way, but society is always evolving. When farm machines came along, farmers didn't just fall over and die and everyone stopped doing it. They had to adapt. So adaptation is part of what we do as a species. And adaptation to technology is actually probably one of the next major revolutions in the course of human history. And we're sort of witnessing the changeover point.
Well, I just want to say that this trend, I believe, is accelerating. I've been fascinated by this topic of the future of work and things for quite some time. And I absolutely agree with what was just said. My concern is the human ability to adapt to change at the rate that we're getting to. I mean, and this trend may be even more dramatic in the developed markets. A place like the US, where you're going to probably lose 16 million truck driving jobs over the next 25 years, just as one example. And then never mind when that filters through the rest of the world, which I would expect it taken more quickly. And also with the longevity trend, which I think you also alluded to, with the median life expectancy trending to about 100 for people under 23 or 24, I'm not sure what the latest is. But you look at somebody who's young and walking around, they're as likely to live to 100 as to not. Presuming other things stay the same and that medical technology continues at the current rate, that's the expectation. So you think, so that old system of, okay, I go to college and then maybe I go out and I get a job and then I work until I'm 65 and then I retire, and this just is not going to work if you're going to be productive up to 90, 100 years old. First of all, you have to save more money for your retirement. Second of all, the technology is going to change 1,000,000 times over the course of your lifetime, whereas our grandparents, very little technical, I mean, there was actually tremendous technical change, but it's accelerated so much now. They're going from electricity to telephone. Now we're going, Apple iPhone iterations are, a decade long, that you have just, it's unrecognizable after a decade. So the iteration is going faster. People's productivity is going to extend longer. So I think actually the whole fabric of working society has to adapt in some way. Probably you need to go to something more like a 10-year contract, like this whole lifelong employment thing. Companies don't last my entire lifelong now. So I think this is...
And I think that's an interesting point, because what you're seeing, and I think you're seeing it at the fringes now, but might become more prevalent over the years, is the modularization of income, right? Where people, because of contract type work, you're no longer working for 25 years with them. Earn more, potentially earn less, and that opportunity is available to a pretty wide base of potential candidates.
So I'm not so much, to be honest, I'm not so much worried, because when you're looking at over 300 years, it is all relative, and you have to see it where everybody who is a farmer and plants a forest, if it's a palm tree or a normal tree, he plants the tree not for himself or for his kid, for his grandkid. So if you go to London, you have houses which are 150 years old and they're still in proper good shape because you adapt. Pressure is to adapt. So some people will lose, yes, it's true. Yeah, that's evolution, yeah, evolve or die out. But I think this will move a society, that's normal, and entrepreneurship is one of the good guarantees to buffer this. Because if you have your own company or a share in a company, most likely will be involved even after your retirement date. So I think in maybe even family-owned or owner-based companies is a good substance for every earthquake that the building will maintain.
One last point also. So people, societies need to, can and will rapidly evolve to adapt to this necessity for rapid change. This is, necessity is going to drive the way people learn, the way they adapt, and how they eventually organize to provide a better means of production. And that also is a great opportunity for emerging markets, because that barrier of entry that existed before has essentially disappeared. You know, a kid in rural India has access to more information than a Harvard graduate had 15 years ago.
Here in the region, right, for the longest time, women have been not part of the workforce. Now they're being integrated into the workforce. The avenues for them to access the workforce are very different than they were a few years ago. Through social media, effectively, you're seeing the rise of influencers in multiple industries that are earning income on their own terms, which was not possible only a few years ago. And it's been a uniquely positive impact here, especially on the female part of the population.
What about the question on countries globally? You will find fewer players dominating market share than was historically the case. Industries were fragmented, lots of small players, lots of SMEs, mid-sized enterprises. Now it is 2 or 3 players dominating every industry to a large extent, even e-commerce. So how do we reconcile that with opportunities for the many?
I think the car industry, maybe this is fragmentation goes back and forward. You know, it's a wave. It goes up and down. You know, when you become a bigger organization, Stanford professor, if you become less innovative. If you're smaller, you can take more risk. You know, if BMW would have a self-driving car and they go bust, Germany has more than a headache. You know, if Tesla goes bust, it has an impact, but not at the same level. So they can take more risk. So this is the reason why you need startups. So I think that goes up and down. And it's
a topic, very complex topic. And I think we have to talk about relative and absolute poverty, right? And wealth distribution. Wealth inequality is growing and probably will continue to grow, and technology will actually exacerbate that and fast track it. At the same time, absolute poverty has actually pretty much collapsed. If you look at human welfare situation where people were healthier, better educated, with more access to water, electricity, basic services, quality food. So overall, humanity is in a better place. But at the same time, we're getting a lot of social tensions from this inequality. A lot of people feel poor, even though in absolute terms they are richer. And that's a very hard topic to deal with. It does bring, there's political angles to this. There's definitely social angles. How do you make sure that you maintain that growth, but at the same time you take care of and try to minimize these growing gaps? Some people might argue what increasing in their general welfare. Certainly it brings up continue to grow, because obviously you do need certain levels of equality.
Around having to wrap up. The time has passed really quickly because we've had such a stimulating chat. I wanted to thank the panel for a fantastic series of insights and look forward to interacting with everybody in the rest of ArabNet. It's absolutely amazing and fantastic that we're having this conversation in Saudi Arabia, in Riyadh, through ArabNet, and through all the partner organizations in this country who are supporting the drive in technology, entrepreneurship, and empowerment. So it's a fantastic, transformative moment, and it's great that we're able to participate collectively together as visitors and as nationals in this country to have this conversation. Thank you very much.
منى أبو سليمان. طبعا واللي يقود الحوار مع الأستاذة منى أبو سليمان الأخت الكريمة فاطمة موسى. بالتوفيق يا أستاذة منى وبالتوفيق الأخت فاطمة.
هلو اوكي
هلو
يشتغل.
مش الحال. منى ابو سليمان بيفور عليك للعالم اللي ما بيعرفوك.
طبعا هو جدا صعب الواحد يعرف برنامجي كلام نواعم على التلفزيون، لكن هذا جزء صغير جدا من شغلي. انا صار لي تقريبا 22 سنه اشتغل في التعليم. انا اظن معظم الشهد و19 سنه on sustainable development and اسمي انك كيف تستطيع بما يحصل حول العالم ورؤيه بطريقه نستطيع ان نستخدمها.
وخبره من الاكسبيرينسز that you have من بعد كل هالنجاحات اللي عندك اياها، شو هن الصعوبات او التشالنجز that you faced being سعودي حجابي woman؟
في السعودية الحجاب مو مشكلة، ربما معظم حياتي كنت بشتغل على الليدرشيب القيادة. كنت رئيسة المؤسسة الخيرية للوليد بن طلال لمدة 8 سنوات الداخلية والخارجية، فكنت بأحضر مؤتمرات كثيرة. وطبعا بالنسبة للمرأة في كثير من الأحيان أصلا كان وجودي كنت المرأة الوحيدة، لكن بما إني محجبة محتشمة مودرن، إنه أنا دائما حقول 20 سنة من 20 سنة إنك تكون متواجد في المحافل الدولية بالحجاب بطريقة إنك أنت بتقدم معلومات أو بتقدم مشاريع غير دينية، كانوا يحطوني فقط في الجزء الديني. فهذا ربما كان أكبر شيء أواجهه في الخارج. في الداخل كونك امرأة كان جدا صعب. قبل مدرسة تشتغل في بنك أو في الطب، إنك تخرج من ذلك الإطار معناها إنها تصبح مستقلة. الاستقلال قد يؤدي للربا عاداتنا وتقاليدنا. وطبعا المشكلة في هذا الشيء في منظور قديم والمجتمع يتغير، بيجي عن طريق الابتعاث، برنامج الابتعاث، عن طريق التحول اللي صار في السعودية قبل رؤية 2030 بدفع المرأة لسوق العمل، والآن برؤية 2030 بدفع المرأة للمناصب القيادية. عندهم أقول fire in their belly، يبوا يسووا شيء. كانت حديثهم جدا جميل، لكن مثلا في أوروبا only 7% of الفندنج جدا صعب. ثاني شيء بما انه الفندنج بيكون في يد معظم الرجال، فتقول لك ايش فيها؟ هم بيسووا القرارات based on criteria KPIs معينه، لا هم بيسيشن لكندرغاردن داي كير افتر داي كير. كثير منهم الهيلث كير للمراه، ما هم مهتمين بنجاة العائله والسيدات، ما كان يجيها فندنج. بس اعمل فندنج لتكنولوجي في معين جيمنج، ما شاء الله يجيهم 200 مليون دولار، وهذيك بتدور على 200,000 دولار. فكان في فرق كبير بالفندنج. فهذا امبالانس، عدم توازن جندري وبتقود المجتمع. ايش التغيرات كيف تشوف؟ بس هي منظور
الايكونومي فيها تفتحها للمرأة. نحن شفنا كل هدول التشينجز عم بيصيروا بقلب السعودية happening over the past year، وستيل في عالم بيفكروا انه those changes are كانت من 5 سنين، وكيف تتخيليها it's gonna تكون in the future.
ما نقدر نتكلم بالعموميات في التغيير. بعض التغييرات بتكون بسرعة، وبعض التغييرات بتصير بالمسيرة العادية، وبعضها بتكون بطيئة. اللي بيحصل انه اصبح تكون في المسار العادي عندك اختيارات، هذا يتقبل انه لذلك لازم يكون في الان قدرة أجيا. فايش اللي بيصير؟ انه في ناس كل الموجودين قالوا انه كيف او ما نفكر بالتغييرات تسارع وهتكبر أكثر خلال 20 سنة بسبب التغيرات. كل ما لها هتكبر 46 شخص عندهم ثروة نص العالم. اسمه 3S في جدة. بنفكر مثلا هل something called UB عشان يستطيع انه يعيش حياة كريمة easy ولا حيكون فئة مكان تنام فيه؟ فهذه هي الأفكار اللي بتدور. حكومة حتستطيع انه تقدمه وتوزع على العالم كله ولا لا؟ رأس مال كأنها شيء طب مؤسستك الصغيرة بفكر لك الآن عشان نقدر لما بنتكلم على replacements نبني system I invested أو استثمرت في شركة جديدة جاية من نيوزيلندا، ما حقول اسمها الآن، اللي يبغى يقدر يتكلم معايا. عملت الترانزليشن الآن جوجل ترانزليشن 98%. 1000 شخص اللي في التكنولوجيا مبالغ كبيرة.
personal problem but you start looking.
لا هي مو انه personal problem، هو انه يعني بعيش الوضع السنة اللي جاية تزدهر، والازدهار بعض السيستمز عشان نتأكد في أشياء أخرى لابد إنه نفكر فيها ونبدأ التغييرات. بعدوا على منصات ويعطونا قرارات ربما.
أنا I always
ليه كده بس؟
وأنت من بعد ما بنيتي كل وفشلت معك
ما أحب كمرأة أتكلم كثير عن الفشل فيه وينسى كل إنجازاتك الأخرى. كمرأة الرجل كان في فترة أنا special place لتصنيع أو وتصميم أصنعها وفي نفس الانطلاقة الخيرية وما عندي وقت. أول ما بدأت فأول شيء تعلمته إذا أنت لأنه ما حد هيهتم كيف تستطيع أنك توظف scalability تجيب لك الشخص اللي البرسوناليتي حقته شخصيته ما. وأنا كنت حاطة كل فلوسي راحت كل فلوسي your savings. كان عرفت انه في اشياء اختصاصيه
ادفايس كلياتنا رح نحطهم براسنا وناخذهم معنا. your experience اكثر شيء تعلمتيه من عملك معه؟
الوليد بن طلال طبعا وكانت عنده مشكله اذا يجي شيء it's called a mentor، احد يثق فيكي ويعطيكي كبير. شاف انه عندي نتورك عالميه لأنه مهتمة بهذا الشيء من زمان عن طريق اليونايتد نيشنز، عن طريق المؤسسات الأخرى الخيرية. بناتي وبين الوليد حياتي كلها يعني ما حقول إنه انتهت بس كانت شبه منتهية جيدة، وتعلمت أشياء ما مفروض أسويها في الناس اللي تحتي. فممتنة.
Actually head does not matter.
شكرا جزيلا لأنه to be a role model is a big responsibility، مسؤولية مرة كبيرة.
no pressure.
no pressure. أنا إنسانة في الأخير أخطئ وأصيب، لكن ربما ظهرت على المجتمع العربي في وقت المرأة ما كانت مقدرة. حتى الأمهات ما كانوا مقدرين. امرأة التقدير لا يخرج خارج البيت. كان
أنا عندي فضول أعرف هل منى عندها رول موديل؟
I have inspirational role models. بنت صغيرة جاها وأصبحت تقريبا وجات لها أستاذة اسمها مسز آن وعلمتها كيف تتكلم وساعدتها إنها تتعلم. وهيلين كيلر أصبحت من شخص شبه مجنون لربما من أكثر الانسبريشنال ووردز، وأبدعت. هذا الكلام تقريبا من 80 سنة 90 as the role model. أنا دائما يحتاج مو بس leaders، يحتاج ناس يصيروا إنسان عنده extremely high بيفكر فيها كيف نستطيع المشاكل. فهذا التفكير من السبت والأحد لما كنا في أمريكا بنات أطبع له بعض الأشياء. لكن الجزء الثاني إنه أصبحت أستطيع إني أسمع مكالماته، كيفية التعامل، شغل أو أنت المفروض تأخذ معك ابنك أو بنتك للشغل على الأقل مرة في الشهر وتشغلهم معك، مو عشان يعرفوا إيش الكارير حقهم، وإنه أيضا كشخص لازم to answer to his.
منى كلمة
أول شيء نتورك تكون عارف أنت مين تبغى تقابل. لما تكلمنا مع بعض أو كلمتك في البانل أو إذا رد هذه النصيحة مرة مهمة. ما بنروح استراحات، ما بنروح تشتغل أكثر على النتورك حقك. حاول أنت تنتقي المال اللي تحتاجه، لا تكون تستطيع أنك تعطي الأجوبة المقنعة. كل ما تكون في مصداقية عالية، كل ما يكون your chance of getting the funding بيكون في حياتك. do your research.
Thank you so much وشرفتينا.
معلش تكلمنا في الأول عن أشياء كثيرة مختلفة وضيعت نص أسئلتك.
بالعكس sharing this with me.
فاطمة موسى، الآن عندنا جلسة حوار بعنوان كيف تنمو بشركتك في السعودية بدعم من الهيئة العامة للاستثمار. يعني الهيئة العامة للاستثمار راح تدعمك، راح تعطيك قروش، اللي يبي قروش يستمع للجلسة. أطلب من المتحدثين يشرفونا على المنصة وحياهم الله، وتحية منكم إذا سمحتوا. وراكم تردعوا بها قروش، صفقوا من قلب، بيعطونكم قروش.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. My name is Umar Ribhan and I am very happy to be here with introductions. As I said, my name is Umar Ribhan with SAGIA, Saudi Arabian General Investment Authority, and I will allow the panelists to give just a quick introduction about themselves, and I'll start with
Muna.
Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Muna Ataya. I'm the founder and CEO of mumsworld.com. Mumsworld is a pioneer and leading e-commerce vertical pure play for all things mother, baby, and child. We are headquartered in Dubai, but we...
My name is Abdelaziz Jof, headquartered out of Bahrain and Dubai, and Saudi. And we process in 20 countries around the globe.
My name is Amir Barsoom. I'm hospital, service and operations, and other healthcare services. We operate between Egypt, Saudi, Jordan, and Lebanon. Our two main offices are Egypt and Saudi here in Riyadh.
My name is Malik. My name is Malik Al-Shab, co-founder of Golden.
As I promised at the beginning, this is going to be a fun discussion. I'm going to drop just a general topic, and we'll have the world of startup and entrepreneurship is a very dynamic and changing world. The blockbusters have been taken by the Netflixes and so on. What do you see the success factor?
So the world, I think, is innovating and disrupting at a pace that we haven't seen before. The world is changing before our very eyes across all touch points. But the fundamental difference really is you do things differently. For us as Mum's World, we recognized 7 years ago a key consumer pain point in the mother, baby, and child retail segment. Specifically, mothers didn't have access to choice of quality product. Prices in this part of the world were very high. Third, information about these products for this very a network of mothers to tap into was difficult. The obvious choice, so e-commerce was our enabler or our platform to solve these excellence executionally and succeed.
Same question with the angle of...
I mean, today, as my dear Muna said, I mean, the whole world is changing. I mean, the ratio of acceptance to start companies and the government support, the environment. I mean, 10 years ago, or even maybe 7 years, hassle and process to do it. I mean, so the whole movement of startup is what really those startup gonna cover for companies to grow or fail. And the market today is still, it's a tough market as a fintech for a start. I mean, a long way to go for us as fintech companies.
Same question to start. There was a need. You provide.
I think there's, the tech product innovation cycle flicks, and you see that happening and they were much smarter, which is the massive in learning and understanding how business model. We always try to look what other players have done, and the second is we're not the middle to build opportunities that are to do something that is catering to your market, where his captured true value in your market.
Absolutely. Mentioned, especially in the e-commerce.
To be successful, for me, I define it in this world. You need to be disciplined. You need to in the room. I think at the end of the day, what is successful? What is successful for tomorrow? At the same time, from the entrepreneurs in the region, the idea, we need to run it and need to be the only thing, what you do. On the other hand, I think successful entrepreneurs, they cannot be successful without money. No? So you need to have also, besides the ideas, they need to be also to support it. So I would summarize it in this.
Absolutely. I'm going to go back to the investment and the importance of investment. Tapping into the rest of the MENA. This is on the consumer base, basically.
So from an e-commerce perspective, the rule of thumb is if you get Saudi to understand how to grow and scale in this market, the rest is easy. And that we anchored our leadership in the Emirates, we then incredible. Our business has multiplied 8-fold in less than a year, just from entering this market. So this is a market that's very important. The consumers are ready. The market is now evolving. I mean, we've seen in the past year the entire ecosystem shift now. I suspect in the next 12 months, we're going to continue seeing this payment gateways, last mile providers, suppliers that have sophisticated systems, customers who are ready to transact on a credit card and other such payments. So insofar that these enablers are available, businesses create job opportunities, they create growth in the economy. We've already started hiring Saudi talent, and I would have to say that the Saudi talent that we've hired is among the best. So again, the market's ready.
It's going to be a tough market to break through.
When was that, Abdulaziz?
I think when I felt that we managed to capture, it's time for us to grow to different market. And I mean, it's going to be what Mona said. I mean, if you manage to break through Saudi, other market is easy to go in. What we've been doing in the last 3 years is we start to for the company as a payment.
Same question. You can take.
I guess our story is close to Mona's story. We started, and you find him super fit. I guess that's my experience with the Saudi market. Dramatically.
We've been working out.
No, absolutely. So we're looking at this. You see not only improvement in the infrastructure, you would also see massive improvement in talent. Just doubling down on what Mona was saying. Actually, now the Saudi we hired almost 20 talents. We ended up with having almost 100% of them are Saudis, and this is about how the market is ready. Again. It's unique dynamics. It's not it's very well designed now for innovation and for disruption.
So if I understood the question correctly, I think it depends on your business model. What other markets which are very interesting, I would take the Egyptian market as an example. Are you looking for a market where the people are, the willingness to spend is higher, where it's in golden cent example? I think the Saudi market is the market where you can start. It's already in the GCC market. Have it's 25 markets. If you have it, then you have already a big percentage. We did it. We started here, and I think we are successful in this.
Well, thank you. Now we'll go back, and actually we'll go this way, since you brought up the investment of investment platforms in And in Saudi, a portion of the question is the investment or the startup investment, if it's there, or what do you think about it? What's your opinion?
In the past 3 years, nowadays, the pick to couple of addresses in Saudi, it was very difficult. You like to reach a totally different number of orders. We want to, how, and then in 2015, it's grown years. I believe what I heard also. So now, is there any ecosystem necessary to be a Saudi idea only? It can be to start something with you. You need to give him some security.
We started off, Visita started off in 2000 to find investment on the table these years, and then today you would find a very different investment landscape. Most of them are definitely, or the big, and even in Egypt. Reading is the value that is $500 million, was to 100. Sawari from Egypt are just announced yesterday, 70 million. So I would definitely agree. I think these are the jump into such sector. More will happen into that space in the very near future.
I said that I think what we start to see today, I mean, you see a lot of VCs seed VCs who you see a lot of seed VCs in the market today. But the moment you grow to the 10, 20, 30, have 1 and 2 or 3 investors, but I mean, I would say the issue is it authentic? I mean, there's hundreds of VCs in the 30s, way far of what we have today. And this is go to a global level where we know that we can attract those capital or investors.
Rounds of funding since we started. All our money is regional money, and that was a deliberate choice. We're a business built for the region, so it made natural sense for us to raise money for the region, from the region. Our latest round was growth capital. We found that in the early stages, our seed was easy to get. Our first, so getting that kind of small ticket is relatively easy, difficult. There weren't a lot of kind of medium range ticket investors out there. So there were the smaller, which is south of 5 million, but there wasn't that kind of black hole area of between $5 and $15 million range. That's usually the tricky period because you're no longer a small business, so you're not attracting ski. So finding that ticket was very, very difficult. And it took us a year. The trajectory of the business was on fast growth. Getting that additional funding for the growth funding was easier than that initial B round. Having said all that, it's still difficult in this region. The decisions to invest in the businesses is oftentimes less academic, perhaps ad hoc. We used to go to investors in that early stage with very, very strong unit economics, a story that we believed was very compelling with even 2 years ago, and I'm optimistic to see that continue to evolve. But we do need more growth capital, really see the economy change, employment, and business trajectory go to a different level.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. A small announcement about Golden Cent. Golden Cent is the first company that obtains to obtain an e-commerce license or a trade license through SAGIA without a minimum capital, which actually supports what. So yeah, that actually deserves a clap. In Saudi Arabia, across all sectors, especially to towards ease of doing business and regulation reform. Ease of doing business, we are doing everything in our hands to make business easy. Panel, what are your final thoughts on a video game? What would you tell them if they have an idea and they want to go ahead?
It's unlike any other time to really, as a large region. So I think.
I mean, massively supporting that this existent to execute it the right way. I think I see this is with the challenge today with entrepreneurs.
I'll tell them go and have fun. It's running and innovating as you could ever do. Definitely is a lot of fun and a lot of fulfillment.
Before I answer the question, I think I have to thank to give more in the boom of e-commerce. To be prepared, I think it will be tough. It's not a journey.
All right, so be courageous, be a unicorn, have fun, and be prepared. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for the fun discussion.
Thanks, Mama. Thank you.
أكثر عن الهيئة العامة للاستثمار دائما إن شاء الله ربحان وراجعين لكم.
منظومة الريادة هي لإيضاح مفهوم منظومة ريادة الأعمال وجبات العلاقة. تمت الحملة بطريق الكراود سورسينج، وشكل رواد الأعمال نسبة مرتفعة من المشاركين. قامت لجنة التحكيم بتقييم المشاركات المكتملة، وتم اختيار أفضل بين عناصر المنظومة. دور أصحاب المصلحة في المنظومة الريادية. وأشارت بعض المشاركات أن من أدوار المنظومة الريادية التحفيز والتيسير وتقليل المخاطر. وغطت المشاركات مجتمعة أكثر من 15 عنصر لمنظومة ريادة الأعمال. للاطلاع على التقرير كاملاً زوروا صفحتنا على تويتر.
رحبوا معي بسعادة الأستاذ أسامة عشري مؤسس النظام الأكيولوجي السعودي الريادي، وكذلك الأستاذ إيدي مارون الشريك والمؤسس لأنغامي لفيث كابيتال القابضة. I'm a big fan of أنغامي.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. يعني first off, I'd like to ask how many of you who doesn't speak Arabic so that we can. Okay, so we'll do it in English since we have a couple of the key outcomes of a recent campaign that created the opportunity for the entrepreneurial community at large in Saudi to share their perspectives on what an entrepreneurship ecosystem is. The ultimate outcome, I hope, is just to bring together the different stakeholders in creating relevant initiatives and programs that could accelerate of the Saudi entrepreneurial ecosystem million-dollar company. And we're very lucky today to have a couple of key players from the region who are on. So without any further ado, I'd like to start by inviting both of our guests here today to introduce themselves. Glad that you made it.
I would like to. I do apologize for coming in late. Plenty of opportunities still left in this part of the world. One of the problems, I believe, in this part of the world is that we're not eyeing things big enough like the rest of the world. I think the new generation coming, definitely they're seeing that. And I predict, inshallah, more and more bigger successes to achieve. And hopefully we can also achieve more successes. People are smart, and we have plenty of good things happening.
You, how about your background?
I lived in England most of banking for 4 years. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, followed my father or my grandfather into entrepreneurship. I didn't want to join the family business, I wanted to do it on my own. Went into food and beverage almost a year and a half ago. We've made 6 for the last 1 year. From an idea, inshallah.
We'll come to that. Very interesting. Eddie?
Marhaba. Hello. I'm Eddie Maroon, co-founder of Anghami, the largest music streaming service in the Middle East. My background is actually music, legal, and business. I've been into this since I was like maybe 10 years. I always worked in disrupting the market with something that can really bring a music experience that can be up to the fire. And we launched Anghami in the year 2070, more than 70 million users. We're around hopefully soon in Morocco. And we're very proud of what we've achieved for this region, because before Anghami it was all full piracy, and now at least we have a better ecosystem for a better tech and music ecosystem.
So on that note, all the way to scaling up.
Yeah,
How was the journey like?
Totally. Now we look at apps and we look at the 10. It was very, very new. So the iPhone was still very new. Android was in its beginning. We were at the time still using the Nokias, the Symbian. So technology wasn't that available, and especially in this part of the world. So the main challenge was first to really figure the technology, have something that works, figure out this, this minimum viable product that can we convince all those content owners and labels and global initiative that we were still, doing out of an idea. That's it. So that was the main challenges, and trying to improve, trying to figure how can I offer a better product, how can I offer a better content, how can I offer a better experience, and you start growing and scaling whatever you're doing makes sense. If this idea is also from a business perspective sustainable, can be viable, you can find someone who can put $1 with you till you really start looking at the challenge of scaling and growing and going from, bigger to build a bigger company year on year and try to go into bigger markets and all of that. So go through the whole cycle.
We'll double click on the growth part later on in the session, but I'd like to now ask Mohammed, as an entrepreneur and as an investor who has been engaged with a number of startups, can you actually tell us about some of the key challenges that you have faced?
Challenges. I mean, first of all, you have to believe in what you do. You have to believe in the problem you're trying to solve. And then having the patience and perseverance to go through it every day. Super, super difficult. And I think having good people around you who also believe is very, very important. Or a journey, and it's extremely uncertain. You don't know. So many factors that can go wrong, could, ruin the whole thing. So I think these are the factors.
So let me go back to the topic of this session, right? So which one, valuation, or you believe that it will get you to $100 million valuation?
I think it's not about the 100 million valuation. It's about really building a business that have an impact and it can really add value to people's life. Speaking of funding, I think every funding in every stage is very important to the life cycle often, because, and especially in our case, we started the business trying to funding it ourselves. We had really commitments that are signed. We didn't have the money. So we were that confident, we were that obsessed, a little bit maybe naive, so that we went all the way and we put all the commitments without, though it might sound now very obvious, it's not that easy to fundraise. It's not easy to get someone who would believe in an idea in the year 2010 and put $1 million for a piece of paper because you have a nice presentation, because you're telling a nice story. You might think that it's maybe now more easy, but at the time it was super challenging, super hard. Then when you start validating things, it becomes really easier to fundraise, and the whole ecosystem in the region and the industry and the sector where we are in grew and developed, and it became a business model that's validated. So this helped our execution, hopefully, was very good. So fundraising was something that's easy, but we don't have Angham.
So Mohammed,
I'm more of an entrepreneur than an investor. I'm in the problem I'm solving and leading companies, but how to be the leading in that industry, because there's always going to be people trying to copy you. So how do you kind of be the leading there and where people start to follow you? So pioneering into something is also something very exciting, a big challenge.
But I'm sure that if we had an investor with us today, he would have disagreed, right? They're looking for the exit, right, for the money and create that impact in the community or the society or the country at large. So on that, just to double click on the growth part, they are, in my opinion, a business.
I think you should always put customers first. Then everything can follow. Because when you have happy customers and retention and all the things we're talking about, and everything else can be figured. Now, speaking of scaling as a good problem to have, but again, if you build proper leadership in your team, if you really believe that the ones that do the things right can do these things, it's not about the founders, it's not about the top people. I think that you can achieve the scale you're talking about. Plus, you start to understand that you're no longer a startup. You have to remain a startup in the way you move, you're nimble, you're fast, you're all these things, but leadership in the team, trying to reinforce the leadership in your team with proper hires and building the proper leadership, as I mentioned.
So what I'm hearing is basically you need to build up traction for your business from customers, and then you have to build concurrently the capacity in terms of leadership and team to move things forward.
Absolutely. It all starts with happy customers, retained customers, and growth, and everything else can be availed, can be really, can be put at the service and at the at whatever you need to make this company where it should be.
Right. Mohammed, cash, capacity, and customers.
I mean, Adi, mashallah alayhi, answered the whole thing. I just want to touch on a pre-entrepreneur have a plan. It's about having a plan, right? Where's, what is the end game? What am I trying to get to? And I think that's super, super important. So, I mean, us as human beings, we have an end time for us as well. So I think sometimes it's a time where you have to say, it's not my time anymore, it's somebody else's time to take it to the next stage, and how to actually reach it and execute it. Just touching on that point in the previous question. And the last one, mashallah, I covered it. Nothing for me to add.
Excellent. So before we turn it over to the audience, any final thoughts and advice to the entrepreneurs out there on how to scale up? So we agree that it's not about building a company with an X valuation, but it's about scaling. Advice on that.
I mean, first of all, you have to believe. I started on that right in the beginning of this talk. I think it's believing in the problem you're solving. Exactly. Oh, I have a problem. I've been thinking about it for the last 3 years. And try it at least. If it doesn't work, you'll learn. You'll do it better next second time. If it doesn't work the second time, inshallah, you'll do it better the third time. So I think entrepreneurs have it in their nature, and subhanallah, sometimes doesn't work. That's kind of my advice.
Being agile, tenacious in your steps, right?
You have to go for it. You have an idea?
Is that your dreams make sense. When I was a kid, I used to validate them. Think of if you surround yourself, that my partner Eli has played a huge role, like the founder. Don't keep analyzing things because you get into this analysis paralysis dilemma. The freedom to fail, you don't have the freedom to create, you don't have the freedom to invent at the end of the tunnel.
We're so biased for action, having the right.
You have to be super smart. People who have go for it.
At Babson, some questions. If anyone has any question, please. Could you speak up a little bit? I can't hear you well.
Okay, my name is Shaheen, and I'm the founder. Thank you. I'm the founder of DeliverX. I totally in. I'm the only one who doing sacrifice for the big. My other co-founder, even though that I don't want to say it's solo entrepreneurship, but I'm scared to find the right partners. Is it have to be before trust the startup more if have multi
very interesting. It's like just planning the wedding and forward in the wrong way. How would you manage that?
In my personal experience, I'm lucky to really have this kind of co-founder, a partner, because we know each other for like years. We go back to the 1999. We trust each other, and the most obvious thing, you want someone who is all in with you. You cannot be with someone who is probably doing something else or has other occupation into what you're doing, because it doesn't just take your time, it takes your life to build a business, to build a startup. And you should be 100% committed and, again, obsessed. So the obvious answer is, again, in my case, it was somehow very straightforward. Someone who is fully committed, who is full-time, who is ready to put an prerequisite, and it's a deal breaker if this person is not.
I think the problem you highlighted is a real problem, and it's the people I like to work with, straight away I like to to make people feel. Now, this doesn't work with everyone. It works with some people. No matter what you do for them, it doesn't work. Some people just don't have the fire in their eyes or the fire in their bellies. But don't underestimate where there is less emphasis on founders. You know, it's like a snowball. As it gets down, it gets bigger. So for me, however, encourage team members, with you. Give them equity in your company. Make them feel this is their company. Let them, deduct money from their salaries and give them shares instead on a monthly basis after their consent, of course. That will make them feel that it really is their company, and that will get you the entrepreneurial spirit in each one. I don't think there's a formula finding the right co-founder. It's like marriage. How do you find the right wife? Or the wife finding the right husband? I ask God for what I want, and I work for it. So it's not just asking and sitting down. It's about asking and praying and then doing something about it. And I believe by having a group of people that believe in the same thing, and if they believe this is their company as well, that will be enough, I think.
So the question, Shaheen, thank you for that. Please.
First of all, thank you for the valuable information that you provided us with. My question is, we as not experienced people like you do, you had your experience and you started the business. I would like to know the steps since the idea generation in your mind, the step by step until you get started. This is like something, you had something in mind, and then step by step, then things get into picture.
If we can focus maybe on the critical steps in that journey or venture life cycle, just in the interest of time.
Yeah, I'll be brief. Actually, you start by this simple idea. It has to either solve a problem or add value. You have to validate this idea, because an idea without proper execution doesn't make any sense. So you start validating the execution of your idea and making sure that you have a business model, because if this idea is making an impact, but anything else can be figured if you have the what's needed to get there. So idea, feasibility, making sure that this is viable, and the business model.
Mohammed?
Yeah, just adding to that, you have to execute. So you execute something and then something else and then something else. And then, subhanAllah, you have to think of how to connect them together to form a certain product. And then the part of the product move, and then how do you do another product? So it's about really taking that initiative and you have to keep going. The question is, with failure, with mistakes, you become more equipped, and you have to truly believe, and not just staying where you are.
And on a high-level basis, I think it's all about thinking big, starting small, failing fast, and then celebrating towards the end. One last question before we conclude our session, just in the interest of time. Okay, great. So thank you so much for joining us in such a very interesting topic and valuable insights from both of our guests here. Thank you so much,
Thank you, Mohammed.
Eddie. Thank you so much, Mohammed. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
شكرا لكم جزيلا. وصلنا لختام مؤتمر عرب نت لهذا اليوم في نسخته السابعة، وإن شاء الله نشوفكم بكرة بإذن الله تعالى الساعة 9:30 الساعة 9:30 صباحا بإذن الله تعالى. شكرا جزيلا، ونشوفكم إن شاء الله بكرة.
عمول ريست للبرزنتيشن بليز ورجع لأول سلايد. Go back like this today all day long.
All the time?
Yes, yes.
Because how I go? Because with all are going.
You have just to use the
اليوم في المملكة العربية السعودية أن يطفئ سيفن المحدودة وهو سوف يخبرك
switch. في switch بين ماوس بين كليكر.
Okay, لكن this is
Playful cat. Overnight, he became loved by.
In what terms? The first one is flash, the other one is a comes back. We're gonna check if we can. Once I'll check them now. Just.
كنت معكم اليوم في المملكة العربية السعودية أو 7 المحدودة